of them saying, listen, on, the night of, we don't know what's going to happen with the mail-in ballots and what Trump's going to do. Shit's going to get crazy. This is Steve Bannon. He's just going to call the election. He's going to call it. He's just going to say that
Even like Bernie was literally saying, Bernie on fucking the Tonight Show was like, oh, Trump is going to call the election early. He's going to try to not count the mail-in ballots. And that's the only thing Bernie's right about.
Prior to the Trump situation, it was considered a perfectly reasonable argument. In fact, the New York Times had an article about saying that more and more of these absentee ballots and mail-in ballots increase the risk.
Hey, guess what? Trump sued. The Trump campaign filed like 60 lawsuits. He hired so many people to investigate it, and they all found nothing. They couldn't find anything. They couldn't find jack shit.
What's the date on it?
That they had to know it was going to go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court was not going to sign off on it. They had to know that, but
they thought they thought the court might not intervene because of the political questions doctrine.
They thought the Supreme Court wouldn't hear it because it would be a major political question.
That's crazy. The Supreme Court, of course, is going to hear it, but
yeah, we don't know what's going. We just don't know what would happen. But yeah, they thought it was going to be a political questions doctrine. And even if the Supreme Court does hear it, the point is you delay in order to give the state legislators time to certify the alternate slate of electors. Did Trump intentionally incite violence?
I think the biggest thing that Trump, the most outrageous thing about January 6th was what we learned after that after the shit hit the fan, after they found these rioters were inside the building and they're urging Trump to do something, tweet something, stop this.
He wouldn't do it.
He just kind of
like 3
sat
hours.
back and enjoyed it. That is...
And he called senators trying to get them to go along with his plan.
Fucking outrageous. I don't...
Criminal?
Criminal? I don't think it's criminal. I don't think that's criminal. It could be impeachable. I don't think it's criminal. I don't think Trump meant or even conceived that they would get inside the Capitol, let alone that he thought that he could change the presidency through violence.
Then what was the point of all the fake electors plot then, buddy?
Think that. So I went back and I actually never heard Trump's whole speech on January 6th.
It's really bad.
So I went back this morning and I cut it up, but it started with Giuliani.
Oh yeah. No, it started earlier than that. I know what you're talking about. Fortunately.
Well, he started with Eastman, right?
Well, Giuliani and Eastman were the two that went on right before him.
Yeah.
But it was a whole, I think there were 5 or 6 other speakers before. But yeah, there's a lot. Those speeches are especially because if you hear it, you would think that what the speech is Trump comes up and he says, all right, guys, we're going to celebrate and do whatever in protest. And I know you guys are going to be peaceful. Let's go.
Well, I cut it up. I actually went through the speech and I found every part where he says the word fight.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to play it for you and you can tell me. But before we do that, in Giuliani's speech,
he said peacefully and patriotically.
He says, over the next 10 days, let me go further back by the way, you cannot, this is very interesting, you cannot find the entire Giuliani speech or the entire Trump speech on YouTube.
You can. It's harder to find, but you can.
I tried a long time. I found it elsewhere. Anyway, so Giuliani says, so it's perfectly reasonable and fair to get 10 days. And they want 10 days. Democrats and our allies have not allowed us to see one machine or one paper ballot. Now, if they ran such a clean election, why wouldn't they make all the machines available? They ran such a clean election, they'd have you come in and look at the paper ballots. Who hides evidence? Over the next 10 days, who hides evidence? Criminals hide evidence, not honest people. Over the next 10 days, we get to see the machine.
I haven't heard Giuliani's speech. I didn't know he said all this.
That are fraudulent. If we're wrong, we will be made fools of. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So let's have trial by combat. I'm willing to stake my reputation.
Oh, I've heard that quote before, though, yeah.
The president is willing to stake his reputation on the fact that we're going to find criminality there. So the plain meaning of that to me is not trial by combat violence, like David French said. It was, I want 10 days. We're going to say our facts. You say your facts. We'll have trial by combat and see whose reputation is still standing at the end. So the first tell about all this, and you said something very smart somewhere. You said, if the truth is good enough, why do you have to exaggerate? And this is a thing, we've heard so many people talk about Giuliani's trial by combat. I think this has nothing to do with violence. This is clearly not the words. So that was what it started. So then you could play that, and then we'll go through the Trump. I might ask you to stop. And I really didn't leave anything out of this. Go ahead. Your press play.
The ballots are fraudulent, and if we're wrong, we will be made fools of. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So, let's have trial by combat.
All right, so it's going to go past.
I'm willing to stake my reputation. The president is willing to stake his reputation on the fact that we're going to find criminality there.
And Rudy, you did a great job.
This is following this.
He's got guts. You know what? He's got guts.
Now, you can stop it anytime you want, Steve.
The Republican Party. He's got guts.
I will actually, real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know which parts you've clipped of this. Can I run you through a short story for what's happening up to this point?
Yeah, and parts I clipped, I did a transcript of it, and anything surrounding the word fight, because that's everybody focused on the word fight, I put in here.
Okay.
100% of the time you use fight. Good.
Okay. Stop me if you... What is our heart out for this?
No, we've got time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stop me if you want me to shut the fuck up. January 6th was always supposed to be violent. It was the absolute goal the entire time. There was no other alternative, okay? That's my thesis. We'll start with that, okay? Trump and his campaign knew that there was a good chance that they were going to lose the election. There is video footage prior to the election of Roger Stone and Steve Bannon saying that, and if I had the video, I'd pull them up on my phone, but of them saying, listen, on the night of, we don't know what's going to happen with the mail-in ballots and what Trump's going to do. Shit's going to get crazy. This is Steve Bannon. Like, he's just going to call the election. He's going to call it. He's just going to say that
Even like Bernie was literally saying, Bernie on fucking the Tonight Show was like, oh, Trump is going to call the election early. He's going to try to not count the mail-in ballots. And that's the only thing Bernie's right about.
Good win. And
that's true. I know about this. Good.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Now, Republicans, because they like to memory hole everything, they like to pretend that, well, nobody knew everybody knew it was going to happen beforehand. Every single person knew. Bernie Sanders, I think, was on Kimmel Live, maybe the day or two before, saying, we don't know what's going to happen. Pennsylvania might change overnight. We don't know. When the mail-in ballots come in, we might see some states flip. Every single person knew that it was going to happen. And that's why
they knew what was going to happen.
That the election could change dramatically overnight as the mail-in ballots are being counted.
Yes.
Everybody knew that was going to happen,
yes.
okay?
Not that was going to happen.
That it could. They knew that the mail-in ballots were going to be heavily in favor of the Democrats because Trump constantly said that they were going to be rigged.
Let me add to that.
Yep.
The election was so close in those swing states, like a swing of 40,000 votes would have gone the other way. No one could have known it was going to happen, but people knew there was a good chance.
People knew that the mail-in ballots were going to be more democratically
favored. They knew that it would move in that direction, but they didn't know if it would get over the top.
True. Yes. But they knew there was a real chance, more than what people were saying.
Absolutely.
Okay. So leading up to the election night, notice also for the year before, for as much as Republicans, namely Donald Trump, complain about mail-in ballots, now I looked for this for a few days. I cannot find a single example of Donald Trump speaking about how to make mail-in ballots more secure. It was always that we need to ban them.
Yes.
And he was even confronted with, hey, don't you vote by mail-in ballot? And he said, well, I'm allowed to do that.
He might have won if he had just told the people to go vote.
Yes, actually. Or, no, that is true.
Yeah.
So leading up to the election, they constantly said voter fraud was going to happen. They constantly said it was going to be rigged if he didn't win. They constantly said mail-in ballots weren't to be trusted. And on election night, two huge things happen. One, Fox News, in a way, Trump perceives it as being a backstab. Fox News calls the election for Arizona. You remember that the night of? I don't know if you said it.
Yes, Fox News. Yeah, he hated
Trump was furious for that because what he planned to do next, which is what he tried to do anyways, he walked up on stage and he called himself the winner of the election that night. And on the second big moment that night, Pence went up afterwards and Pence said, listen, I'm sure we're going to win, and we'll be glad to announce a victory after every vote has been counted. So Pence tried to walk that statement back a bit for Trump. Okay. Mm-hmm. From November 3rd, it becomes clear in the days after that they've lost the election, basically. I think by the 7th, it basically gets called. At that point, all hell breaks loose in the Trump camp, and there are two dates now that are coming up that they're going to try to control. One is December 14th, which is when the electors...
Which is when they have to cast their fake electors, and the other is Jan 6th
and the
when
next
it's
is January
certified.
6th, which is when the electors are certified.
Now, can I pause you there?
Yep, pause.
I agree with...
Okay.
I think I agree with everything.
That's good.
I just want to make the case for something. I knew this at the time. Mm-hmm. This is an article from the New York Times, October 6th, 2012, before Trump thing. Mm-hmm. Look at the headline. Error and fraud at issue as absentee voting rises. Mm-hmm. So prior to the Trump situation, it was considered a perfectly reasonable argument. In fact, the New York Times had an argument about saying that more and more of these absentee ballots and mail-in ballots increase the risk.
Hey, guess what? Trump sued. The Trump campaign filed like 60 lawsuits. He hired so many people to investigate it, and they all found nothing. They couldn't find anything. They couldn't find jack shit.
What's the date on that?
October 6, 2012.
Okay. When these articles are written and these things happen, what happens is the counties get together and they figure out how do they tighten up their elections, which is what did happen, which is why when people ever bring up the Dominion voting machines and being rigged online, those things, all of them produced a paper ballot. Every single Dominion voting machine, every single voting machine in the United States, none of them were done purely electronic. All of them did paper ballots. That's one correction that people made because they were worried about things related to error or fraud or whatever.
Maybe you're right, and maybe that was known, that wasn't known, but it does seem like it was not unreasonable.
It was. Wait, hold on. Okay, let me keep going, okay? Stop me, okay? Let me keep going, okay?
Go ahead.
So election is called at this point, okay? They are desperate, and they have to find ways to stop basically the election from continuing. They can't let the electors get certified on the 14th or to have them vote, and they can't let the votes get counted on the 6th. So from that point, we get things like the Kraken from Sidney Powell and Giuliani and all these crazy conspiracies.
Tell people what that is. If people are not going to remember.
No, they don't remember. No one knows what the Kraken was. So supposedly, the Trump and his cronies launched basically 64 court cases in different jurisdictions around the country to try to focus on these 7 states to try to get the elections flipped. But what happened was
there was always some huge factual basis that was about to be uncovered.
All of it,
always panned,
every
never
single one. It wasn't that it didn't pan out; it's that they were fucking bullshit.
Yes.
They were utter and total bullshit. So
they were stalling to try to hope to find something that actually would exist.
No, because they knew nothing existed.
They wanted litigation to be open on January 6th is what they wanted, because they thought it would strengthen the case for delaying their certification. Basically, if it ever went to the courts, you could say, hey, look, there's a fucking case open on this. Clearly there's some concern here for election fraud. That's my understanding.
Stalling so that they could steal the election. Sidney Powell, when she got taken to court, Dominion was, I won't go through all of these, but the Dominion was another one. When Sidney Powell was taken to court, Sidney Powell said, I can't be sued for these statements because these weren't statements of fact, and a statement has to be actionable for it to be qualified as a defamation statement. And nobody who was watching me talk about Dominion machines being created in Venezuela with orders of Hugo Chavez, obviously this was just my opinion, these weren't statements of fact, despite the fact that they were in court filings, okay? So they were filing bullshit cases. They knew they were bullshit cases. And by the end, when they were forced to admit, in court what was going on, they said that they fucking lied on all of them, and every single person behind the scenes was also telling Trump and his cronies and his campaign this shit over and over and over and over.
So let's take this. Let's take this to what it implies. And we'll get back to the speech.
Yeah,
it's all going to come down to this question of whether or not people think that Trump knew he lost and was just outright cheating.
He did.
Or people think, no, the guy's such a narcissist.
No,
he actually believed
impossible.
That, and you believe that as a matter of a civil standard, you're more likely than not, or you think you could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump knew he lost and was.
Well, if he didn't know he lost, he's literally mentally unfit for office. He's literally psychotic. He's literally schizophrenic.
Cheating.
Well, it depends on what the Supreme Court will let you review for evidence now, because a lot of it is not reviewable.
Whatever
beyond a reasonable doubt, absolutely easily. There's a huge thing. Again, there's so many stories. Also, the nice thing about my conspiracies is all of these are available in testimony, deposition, under oath, investigation stuff. None of this is like conspiratorial, like, I read this on a weird website. All of this is super in the open, okay?
You don't see a psychological problem playing out here.
There is a way for that.
Donald Trump psychological issue here. You see,
if it's that bad, then he needs to be institutionalized.
Yeah, maybe,
he's experiencing psychosis.
True.
Well, I know a lot of people who are in denial.
This isn't just denial, though. This is him asking people around him to lie in order to further the.
Well, listen. I go back and forth. Go ahead.
But how do you go from there to this was always meant to be violent?
Sure. So, are you familiar with the fact that on December 1st that Barr gave an interview with
You think he'd be schizophrenia, but most of his party believes it? But yeah, a lot of Trump's. Well, I don't even know if most Republicans believe it at this point. I know a lot of obviously most Trump supporters believe it, but Trump himself was told by so many people that he previously trusted to investigate election fraud. He was told specific claims that were false, and then went on to repeat those same exact specific claims that were false. If you don't trust people in your own cabinet who you trusted to investigate election fraud, if they tell you a specific claim is false, not just that it's false that the election was stolen, but a very specific claim, for example, about like the suitcases in Georgia, if they tell you that it's false repeatedly, and you go on if you go on like next day and give a speech about how there were suitcases full of fraudulent ballots in Georgia, you're fucking lying or psychotic.
The Associated Press. He gave a big interview with the Associated Press. It was people would never expect Barr to do that. Barr did it because Trump, the week prior, had been saying the DOJ is asleep at the wheel. We don't know where the DOJ is, and the FBI, they're silent on this issue. Barr had opened investigations, and in late November, he tried everything. Barr couldn't find anything. There was nothing to investigate because every single claim was some bullshit affidavit, some stupid fucking report from some no-name person. None of it was actionable.
Yes,
nothing to
I would wrap everything up you said in a bow. I don't have all these details in my command, but I've made the following argument to people that Bill Barr and Mike Pence, both of whom were on the ballot, Mike Pence directly on the ballot, Bill Barr to the office, who more than any voter wanted Trump to win, were intimately involved in all the details, and they didn't even give it a second thought. It was clear to them that there was no case there.
But not only that, though.
And that's good enough for me.
But Trump was firing those people and bringing in people to try to make it work.
Right. I'm saying
the way
these were Trump's henchmen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
These were Trump's henchmen.
Yeah. But the way that they tried to make it work, so Barr quit.
If there was any ambiguity.
I think older pre-MAGA stats show that Democrats are more likely to be mentally ill. Do you think that's shifted? Probably not, but it's probably like mentally ill in a different way. Like Democrats are probably more likely to be depressed. Like that doesn't surprise me, but like pretty sure studies have consistently shown that one. Like, yeah, but
ambiguity to the factual record.
If we're asking who is more likely to be in like a sane state of mind, as like, and who is more likely to engage in reality, then it's obviously Democrats. Republicans and Donald Trump himself are still spewing the same election lies that they were in 2020. So, like, on that point, Republicans are just fucked.
Record there.
Like,
Barr and Pence would have been highly motivated and within their rights to say, listen, we need to look into this. It's only fair. You know, I don't want to go back to civilian life. I'm the vice president, so give us a second. There was nothing which Mike Pence thought was significant enough that he said, hold on a second, let's go slow here. We need to explain this first. Nothing.
Not a thing.
That was all I needed to know.
So Barr quits the DOJ on the 14th because he's like, fuck this, I'm done. So now there's a funny story supposedly where Trump threw a plate at the wall, I think on the 13th over a dinner where Trump and Barr were screaming at each other. But on the 14th, Barr resigns. The next day when new acting attorney general, new acting deputy attorney general, it's Jeffrey Rosen and Donahue. There are 7 fake electoral slates that Trump wants Pence to count. He wants them to keep objecting to the certification of the vote until eventually they stop, to muck it up in the courts. That's why they keep saying we just need 10 more days because Eastman and everybody else thought they're never going to challenge.
That's it.
Yeah, go ahead.
The question,
I got it.
Question is this.
Yeah.
Do you think Trump imagined that these people were going to get inside the Capitol?
Yes.
That's to me, that's where I lose you.
Why did he want them to come on January 6th? What was the plan?
So true.
When they were going to stop the steal, how were they going to stop the steal?
Well, we're going to go through the speech for that. But to me, I used to joke when Hamas on October 7th was so incredibly successful, in terms of their horrible aspirations, and they found themselves in Israel for 6 or 7 hours unanswered. I said the only people more surprised than Hamas to find themselves in Israel were the January 6th protesters finding themselves inside the Capitol. Like, there's no way.
The Proud Boys were like literally, obviously not all the January 6th protesters were the Proud Boys, obviously, but like the Proud Boys literally had like a coordinated plan. They were using fucking walkie-talkies saying, push through this barricade now. Like,
you could imagine that you're going to walk into the Capitol building of the United States of America. There are guards there. They have guns. They're going to shoot you. You imagine this is the most protected building in the country, if not the world. And we have this plan. We're just going to get a bunch of guys and we're going to walk right in there. We don't even have guns. Like, we might have some pitchforks. I don't know what they were carrying. Guns. But nobody could count on that. And that's what I think. But I think the plan was to have such a raucous riot outside to intimidate whatever voters, whatever senators he needed to give them their extra 10 days to go through their nonsense. I don't even know what their final.
That's fair. What you're saying could be, but that's, remember my definition. Insurrection can happen with intimidation. That counts as violence.
And then the end of the story is that they had to know it was going to go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court was not going to sign off on it. They had to know that, but
they thought they thought the court might not intervene because of the political questions doctrine. Yeah.
They thought the Supreme Court wouldn't hear it because it would be a major political question.
That's crazy. The Supreme Court, of course, is going to hear it, but
yeah, we don't know what's going. We just don't know what would happen. But yeah, they thought it was going to be a political questions doctrine. And like, even if the Supreme Court does hear it, the point is you delay in order to give the state legislators time to certify the alternate slate of electors. The idea is, if you delay the certification, you can state legislators or other senators are more likely to come on board with the plan and be like, oh, maybe we can fucking do this shit. So maybe we should actually certify the alternate slate of Trump electors. Maybe more people in Congress would refuse to certify the vote.
Trump gets satisfaction from this.
I saw a conservative watching Tim Pool, who's not even aware he got money from Russia. That's how out of the loop they are. Jesus.
In a visceral way. Even if he hasn't thought it through, or even if he knew it wasn't going to work out for him in the end, he would have. If somebody said, "Listen, Donald, at the end, the Supreme Court is still going to throw you out of here," he would still do everything he did. That's not.
Yeah, but why do you think you're so sure that the Supreme Court have heard it and that the Supreme Court have ruled on it? You have no idea.
I'm 100% sure.
Absolutely,
I would stake my life on it. That there's no way the Supreme Court of the United States is going to let some bad faith use of some 200-year-old law undermine the country's voters. The Supreme Court is honorable. Like, you could disagree with them. Nobody thinks Roberts is not an honorable guy.
Roberts is a hack.
No, if you read Roberts,
an absolute hack. But you should read Roberts. Gorsuch writes well.
But he's not.
Kavanaugh could write well. Amy writes well.
He is not a MAGA guy.
He is MAGA to the end of the
The Supreme Court did not stand by Trump when he was trying to keep his tax returns. Many times they didn't stand by Trump. Roberts is a guy who upheld Obamacare. Roberts, I think, is probably a never Trumper. Supreme Court.
There was a huge article that just came out saying Roberts was taking over writing the majority opinions on a lot of these things.
He took over the majority opinion because it looked like
Alito was compromised.
Alito was not compromised, but that his reputation was the appearance of impropriety. Yeah. So he didn't want his decision to be tarnished by that. That's a smart thing to do. This is where I really don't agree with you. The Supreme Court may be conservative. They are patriots. They're certainly not beholden to Donald Trump, especially Roberts.
I don't think there is a true American that exists that could think that the president of the United States is beyond criminal charge.
I just can't go that far with you to think that the Supreme Court of the United States would be not just lack patriotism would be underselling it, would be completely and totally corrupt to end American democracy on behalf of Donald Trump, knowing that he lost the election and they would sit by and allow him to become president. That's just
one thing that was never addressed.
We're way off. I think that I think Trump thrives on the entire January 6th I was robbed moment, regardless of whether he actually thought he could stay in office. I don't even know if I've seen other people like this, if they've actually even thought through what they think is going to happen, because they're so caught up in the ecstasy of this moment, the crowds, the championing, the playing the victim. So anyway, play the speech. Play the speech. So this speech was, sold as, and I didn't see it at the time as this call to violence. So you tell me, Dan, go ahead. And I didn't leave anything out. Go ahead.
He fights, and there's so many weak Republicans, and we have great ones. Jim Jordan and some of these guys, they're out there fighting.
Also, he didn't just call for protests starting on January 6th. He started doing it on December 19th. Like, this was he very much planned for several months to have protesters there. I guess really only for 1 month.
The House guys are fighting. But it's incredible. Did you see the other day where Joe Biden said, I want to get rid of the America First policy? What's that all about? Get rid of... Unbelievable what we have to go through. What we have to go through. And you have to get your people to fight. And if they don't fight, we have to primary the hell out of the ones that don't fight.
So stop there. There he's using fight not as a violence. He's saying you fight them, or we have to oppose them in an election. So good. Now, but the edits are not as clear as I want them to be. Go ahead.
We're gonna let you know who they are. I can already tell you, frankly. No third world country.
When he says, just to be clear what he's saying here, what he's saying is there are Republicans right now that need to refuse to certify the election. And if they don't refuse to certify the election, we're going to primary them in 2022.
Yes.
That's what he's talking about. Right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
To do what we caught them doing. And you'll hear about that in just a few minutes. Republicans are constantly fighting like a boxer with his hands tied behind his back. It's like a boxer. And we're going to have to fight much harder. And Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country. Because you're sworn to uphold our Constitution.
What a liar.
The American people do not believe the corrupt fake news anymore. They have ruined their reputation. But it used to be that they'd argue with me. I'd fight. So I'd fight, they'd fight, I'd fight, they'd fight. Boop. You'd believe me, you'd believe them. Somebody comes out, with your help over the last 4 years. We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country, and nobody even challenges that. But our fight against the big donors, big media, big tech, and others is just getting started. But I said, something's wrong here. Something's really wrong. Can't have happened. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors have not yet begun. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. And we're going to cheer on.
Now stop there for a second. Now the question to me was that when he said we're going to walk down, I'll be there with you. Was he lying? He never intended to walk down there with them?
He wanted to walk down, but the Secret Service wouldn't let him. Right. So many people there had weapons.
Right. So if he wanted to walk down, he didn't want to be involved in a violent riot himself.
No, because he's a pussy. But he would have cheered it on.
Right. But that means he didn't expect a violent riot. If he intended and wanted to walk down with them, but he also at the same time expected them to rush the Capitol.
Yeah, but they were going to be violent for him. They were his soldiers.
Right. But
that's what when the Secret Service said, sir, we can't.
Yeah, he's about to mention when Trump wanted them to take metal detectors down because he said that the people with guns weren't here to hurt him.
Down. This I think they called it an off-schedule trip. He said, no, they're here for me. It's okay.
Right. No, that was about a photo op.
He said this twice. He said this in regards to the people there, and he said it when he talked about bringing 10,000 National Guard troops. He's like, the Guard troops are there to protect my people. That's why he said.
If you look at the Cassidy Hutchinson, she's
one person that's given testimony. She works inside the White House. Yeah,
she was the one who talked about magnetometers. Let them through. She said in that testimony that he wanted them through because he wanted the photo op of a lot of people. That's what I'll show it to you right after. You can Google it. I can look at it now. But what I'm saying is that this is where it doesn't hold together for me, because if he was intending to go down there with them, it becomes very hard for me to believe he expected a dangerous violent situation.
He wants to go down there and steal the election. What do they?
Yes,
what does stop the steal mean?
Violent riot.
So they're just going to try to steal the election with no violence, with a bunch of people that he knows have weapons, that he's called here for a historic, once in a lifetime march, the most important thing you might ever do. You have to fight like hell, or you're not going to have a country anymore. He thought that they were all just going to go and chill there and just.
No, I think he thought they would have a raucous demonstration, but not rush inside the Capitol and talk about. Try to hang Mike Pence.
And this guy who thinks that the election was apparently stolen from him through all these machines thinks that the legislators inside in the Capitol Hall would just change their vote because of the protesters outside. No, he wanted violence. The easiest way to tell is, what did he do after they broke in?
They're not
They're not going to change their vote because of the violence either.
They stopped the certification.
So you think he wanted to stop the certification?
Yes, absolutely.
So why would he want to walk down there with them? Like that's what could be worse for him than to actually go down there and put his imprimatur on.
Nothing is bad until you lose.
Okay, so continue the thing.
And congressmen and women, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity. Despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come.
Okay, that's it, right?
So,
is that it? Oh, go continue.
Well, there's some more.
We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol, but we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all for being here. This is incredible. Thank you very much.
So that doesn't sound to me. Let's go. You can stop it. That doesn't sound to me like a call to actual violence. It just doesn't.
He spent the last month creating 7 fake elector slates that are at the Capitol, hoping to be picked, trying to pressure Mike Pence to unilaterally flip the election, telling all of his constituents to come to Washington for the most historic march ever. And then when he's there, he repeats all the same claims of voter fraud that have been debunked in front of him over and over again. He's telling people they need to encourage weak Republicans, that they have to fight like hell, they're going to lose their country, that the country's been stolen from them. He knows that people are here with weapons. He knows that everybody's here with...
What weapons do they have, actually? I don't even know the details.
The Secret Service spotted at least, I think, like 1 rifle and 1 knife. The thing was is...
Oh, that's not a photo.
No, hold on. The thing was, and this is what he was complaining about when you mentioned the photo op, I want to say 30... I think it was like less than like 10% of the audience came through those magnetometers or whatever, and the vast majority of them stayed outside. And the Secret Service trying to figure out, well, why are they out there? And then when they started looking, they see like one dude in a tree with a rifle. I think they had confiscated like 500 knives that had come through the magnetometers. They saw one other person that like, well, these people are probably out here because they probably have weapons. Now they can't go and search people because it's you need probable cause for that. But that was the theory. That's one of the reasons why the Secret Service didn't let him go to the Capitol. So, but let's roll with that. Well, maybe he just didn't know. I mean, this is so easily then viewed as, well, what happens when he goes in his office once they break in? He spends 3 hours with Giuliani making phone calls to lawmakers to try to get them to refuse to certify the election. Why is he doing that while the violence is happening? If he really cared, or are we saying that it just happened, they just happened to take orders perfectly and delay the certification of the election, and then he did nothing to stop it for 3 hours?
This is why I described it as a difference of a first-degree murder and manslaughter between us, because there's so much of what you're saying I agree with.
I think this would be second-degree murder, also not manslaughter.
Okay, but
reckless indifference.
But the idea that that the speech was an incitement of violence. I mean, I'm just being honest. It never struck me that way. He uses the word fight in nonviolent ways over and over. Giuliani clearly wasn't talking about violence when he said trial by combat, and it wasn't it was not in his interest. It's the worst thing that ever happened to him that it got violent.
It wasn't. It worked up until it didn't. They delayed the certification of the vote. That was the goal. But the problem is Mike Pence didn't refuse to certify the election for him, and he couldn't get any congressmen to obstruct for 20 hours or whatever, like Eastman wanted them to.
Okay. I guess, I mean, it seems to me that if they had delayed, the country was not going to accept a delay in the certification.
Half the country was ready to.
No. They would accept it if it happened. They wouldn't accept it, but it would be an easier sell if it appeared to be a deliberative decision than one which was done at the point of a gun. Once the country sees that the vote was not a vote, but was a capitulation to violence, no one can defend that vote.
Yeah, but that's the great thing about dehumanizing your opponent.
But all the arguments, all the legal theories, none of that even can be brought to bear anymore because that's not why they voted that way. You held a gun to their head.
But people think that that's already happened on their side.
And you think the Supreme Court would actually uphold a decision by the Senate that was made on TV with people figuratively holding guns to the senators' heads, and that's crazy.
What Eastman was saying was he didn't think the Supreme Court would touch it because of the political decisions and major questions doctrine. That it was too big of a decision, way too political, so the Supreme Court would...
Or just be delayed long enough that they could find state legislators that could, state legislators to certify the alternate slate of electors that they created.
I think that's ridiculous, what Eastman said.
That's fine if you think it was ridiculous, but that was their plan going in.
What I'm saying is that it's ridiculous even the way you're describing it. But even Eastman couldn't believe the Supreme Court would uphold a decision if he knew it was a result of a violent intimidation. In other words, the Supreme Court might say, okay, we're going to accept it. The Senate decided. But if they know that the Senate didn't decide, that the only reason it happened is because a violent mob put a gun to their head, no, that cannot stand procedurally. It couldn't have.
What if-
and that's why they could have never wanted that.
What if they win the certification? The Supreme Court decision is after January 20th.
Follow my argument.
I do, but what if Donald Trump just appoints 6 more judges to the Supreme Court?
Well, that's now you're bringing another thing. What if he can't appoint 6 more judges?
Yeah, he could. He just appointed. Do you think Republicans in the Senate are going to stand against Trump? These guys go along with him with literally every plan he's hatched.
Okay, well, I don't think. First of all, they have to change the statute.
I don't even know if you have to change the law. I think it's just
No, you have to change the law because there's a law which says how many members are on the Supreme Court, and then. I mean, that's why Biden can't pack the court. He wants to. He proposed a.
Biden doesn't want to pack the court. He explicitly said he wouldn't do that.
To.
No,
Yeah,
but
I don't.
whatever. That's the Democrats wanted. But since then, he said he's taking a look at. The point was that there was going to be a proposal. A law had to be passed to allow for more. Right now, it's not a random number of Supreme Court justices. There's a law which says how many justices there are on the Supreme Court. They have to change that. This is where we diverge.
Yeah.
I think there is a limit. You, if your worldview is correct, you had to be way, way, way more shocked than I was that Bill Barr and Mike Pence and basically every other Republican administration didn't stand by Trump.
When I started doing the deep dives on this, because I used to say over and over again that the guardrails of our institutions held, that our institutions were stronger than I thought. I've said that over and over again, and it is absolutely not true. Who actually held strong were other Republicans. It was somebody like Mike Pence. There's a reason why Trump is not running with Pence again. It's because he wanted to die on the 6th because he didn't go along with his plot. That was the whole reason why there's photos of Pence in the underground bunker looking at his phone, okay, because he's been evacuated, all right? The Secret Service is telling him, sir, you need to get in the car, we have to leave. And Pence is saying, I'm not going to allow the world or the rioters outside to watch the Vice President of the United States flee the Capitol. And while he's looking at his phone, Donald Trump is tweeting out, Pence has failed us.
But I think you're agreeing with me. I'm saying that you think every senator, they're ready to pack the court, the Supreme Court, everybody's going to roll over for Trump. And I'm like, well, these people are far removed from it. The people closest to him, the people who were considered the people covering for him.
Bureaucrats. As much as people hate to say it, it was the bureaucracy. It was the people with the institutional knowledge and wisdom. Right. It was the lawyers in the White House. It was the Attorney General Barr. That's why he resigned on the 14th. That's why he gave that interview with the AP on the 1st.
Vice President.
It was the Vice President who stood against him, and it lost everything for it. Because remember, everybody that stands against Trump, he's saying it here. He'll lose everything for it. He'll primary you. He'll destroy your career. He'll bully you. It's a whole other thing. But if you ever read through the Dominion Fox News lawsuit, Fox News is saying over and over again, we know it's a lie. We're posting it anyway.
Stephen?
They say it over and over. It's all open.
You're too far gone on this. There is more principle to these people. Not much.
There's none. I'll put any of them up here in front of me. I swear to God, Jim Jordan, traitor to the United States. Giuliani, I don't even know if Giuliani was ever a prosecutor. This guy is insane.
Can we go on a little bit longer, brother? We have to go? All right, I can't agree with you. Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But do you think what he did was sufficiently irresponsible and dangerous that it should disqualify him from getting your vote?
I thought I was going to say criminal prosecution. Whether or not like you can prove Trump did something like criminal beyond a reasonable doubt is like debatable or whatever. But like disqualifying from getting your vote, absolutely. What? Like even if J6 wasn't an insurrection, I'm dug super far deep into the insurrection thing because I don't really care if it was an insurrection. It's very clearly morally disqualifying. You should not be holding office if you're stress testing democracy the way Trump did, we'll say. Regardless of whether